This episode of the Media Leader podcast was edited by our production partner, Trisonic. And if you're looking for podcast production support, we highly recommend them. Find them at trisonic.co.uk.
All the algorithms and all the technology that's available was pretty much available to everybody. So the more everyone was leaning into technology-led solutions, we were like, there's something missing here. We're all going to end up being a complete kind of aggregation or all the same.
Welcome to the Media Leader podcast. I'm Jack Benjamin. Last year, unveiled a new global omnichannel media planning proposition, full color media. The approach, underpinned by a custom body of research developed in partnership with the University of Oxford Said Business School, seeks to move against the grain of generic, algorithm-driven media planning and towards a recentering of brand-driven advertising. Since the debut of the proposition, has gone through a period of continued change as its parent Interpublic Group was acquired by Omnicom Group at the end of last year. Susan Kingston-Brown is the global brand president for worldwide. I caught up with her at UM's new London offices at Bankside to discuss how full-color media has developed over the past year, whether distinctive agency brands are still valuable at a time when some holding groups are consolidating their efforts, and how she has managed the transition to Omnicom with her team at This is our conversation. I hope you enjoy. Susan Kingston-Brown, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Jack, on a beautiful sunny day overlooking the Shard.
Yeah, overlooking the Shard because we're not recording where I normally record the podcast. I've actually come to your sparkling new offices here on Bankside. How are you finding the new offices, I suppose, first of all?
It's great. We have a view of our old office over here outside the balcony. We can look over onto St. Paul's. It's been, was actually the first to move in out of all the IPG agencies at the end of Feb. So it's been great. We've been getting to know our new colleagues. We've got a fabulous space. So we got the penthouse, which we're delighted about.
It does have good views.
It has beautiful views. It's great spaces. It feels like we're part of this big organisation. You know, even with kind of the optics of when you walk in and the facilities around here and on a sunny day, obviously the balcony is great for people to congregate and everything. So yeah, we're all settling in quite nicely. We're about to get our branding, so we're making our home our own. So full colour media and we'll make this floor a beautifully colourful space this month. I
remember there were some murals at the old space. Will there be new murals in this office space?
Yeah, there will be murals. We've been able to really make the space our own and kind of create lots of breakout spaces for people to have. But then the murals and that colourful vibe that we had in the Bailey, we tend to recreate and make even better here as well.
Gotcha. Well, I'll ask a little bit more about the acquisition transition period in a little bit. But first, we like to start our interviews with getting to know a little bit more about you. This is your first time on the podcast. And I'm curious what actually got you into media and advertising in the first place.
Oh, my goodness. So I am from Ireland, which you can tell from the accent. I've been in London 26 years. For some reason, Irish people just don't lose their accent. I think we travel around the world and infiltrate every country, but we never lose our accent. I started out in investment banking. I realised quite quickly, I was at JP Morgan, I realised quite quickly sitting behind a desk and crunching numbers as an analyst wasn't for me. I had a little bit more creativity and this just was missing the spark for me. So then I started to work for a venture capitalist that was investing during the dot-com boom in digital businesses. There was a company called Idealab and we invested in, like an incubator basically, we invested in early stage companies. And we happened to invest in an organisation, very small affiliate marketing agency called Commission Junction. I was number 2 on ground for EMEA because as part of the VC, I got embedded in that. So that began a journey accidentally into marketing, into digital. And from there, I worked in that side of the business for 10 years. And then my first agency role was actually Ogilvy. So it was accidental, but I'm a very happy accident, I have to say. So I'm often asked, at this stage in your later career, you're often asked, what advice would you give your younger self? And my only advice is just say yes to everything because you never know where you're going to end up. But It's always fun.
Sounded like you did say yes to.
I did
just
say
about
yes.
everything.
And the choice was, when I was in the venture capitalist, the choice was two companies, Commission Junction, or it was called at the time Overture, which became Yahoo Search. And because at Commission Junction I got a silver Motorola mobile,
Nice.
and a nicer laptop, I chose Commission Junction.
That was
a sliding doors moment.
I love the old Motorola Razr.
Yeah, it was a brick, I think, was the unofficial term for it.
Well, Susan, it's been over a year since you launched full color media here at First of all, for anyone unfamiliar who didn't read our reporting on this last January, can you talk us through a little bit what the proposition entails and also what you've maybe learned over the past year and a couple months?
Yeah. So, has been an agency that's been around for a long time. I think we were looking ahead about 2 years ago and just looking at how the marketing world was changing. The pace of the adoption of technology, the pace of AI actually, even in its infancy a couple of years ago, we knew and we predicted it was going to change fundamentally what we did and how we did it. But more importantly, how marketers were going to be able to go to market. And the two big things we saw was, one, there was so much more disruption in all of our clients' categories, and it was much harder to stand out because the sea of advertising, media, even just your choices in every category was even so much greater than ever before. And trying to win a customer just became harder and harder because everyone looked the same and was saying the same. And the second thing is we looked at how we deployed media. All the algorithms and all the technology that's available was pretty much available to everybody. So the more everyone was leaning into technology-led solutions, we were like, there's something missing here. We're all going to end up being a complete kind of aggregation or all the same. And we'll all be essentially start using technology to end up being completely, what the term we use is bland. Completely bland. We'll look the same. We'll communicate to consumers the same. We'll use the same algorithms to optimize plans, etc. So we saw there needed to be a real shift in how we brought our clients to market. So we looked at analytics because we're a very analytics-led organisation. And we worked at Oxford University to do research across 10,000 brands and to see what was the silver bullet. And no surprises and no big reveal. There is no silver bullet. Every single one of those 10,000 different brands had a different pattern in how they were getting a consumer to become a customer or to buy their product. So then it led us to look at, actually it's the analysis of those brands and how we look at different categories where those patterns are very similar, how to break the pattern and how to look to force new patterns to get consumers across the line and get them to buy our clients' products as well. So from that like kind of deep research and that work, we then created full colour media. And the idea behind it is we see the world in full colour. We're not looking at a bland universe where everyone's doing the same. We look to try and find the difference so that we can then go to market. And also from a very cost-led approach, it was also becoming more and more expensive because it was harder to bring that customer in. So we knew from an efficiency point of view, clients were not going to be able to afford it. The squeeze on budgets was happening in parallel with the rise of technology. So we knew that we're going to have to work harder with sometimes less money and sometimes, a disproportionate share of that money versus the category. So that's really where it came. It came from a need. It came from something that we knew we needed to differentiate within our agency to stand out within the agency world as well.
How has it changed working practice?
It's fundamentally changed the way we do things and the practices we use because it's not just a tagline. We looked at the modelling we use to do a diagnostic of what a client needs to do and the jobs that need to be done. We looked at updating our workflow. So looking at the process end to end with identifying the pattern and what we're going to go after and how does that translate, those insights translate into a strategy. So that fundamentally changed the steps we undertook early on in the process when we're working with the client. And then secondly, the the phrase I haven't talked about yet has become a real rally cry within our organisation is stand against bland. And the stand against bland we were making was, as I said, with the diagnostics of understanding the pattern and coming up with ideas and media plans that look different. But what was going to be the real enabler beyond technology and beyond data was the behaviours within the agency. So the working practices changed to look against every step. We ask ourselves, and our teams ask themselves, how is this standing against bland? So imagine a world where you're at the point of, obviously the strategy I've talked about, but actually if you're at the point of activation, so when you've got the final media plan and we're going to negotiate with media owners how we get the maximum value, we ask our investment teams to work with us to stand against bland. So how do we extract additional value, additional data sources, for example, not just free ad space or a cheaper price, but what is going to be disproportionate value that helps the clients media work harder as well. So that we've embedded it at every step, and this sounds very prescriptive, but it's created a fundamental change in the working practices. Is at every step, as it's handed over to the different specialists, they're asked the question to complete, how does this step stand against bland? And it really prompts different behaviours and different curiosity. And I think I'm biased. I think the feedback we get is our employees really enjoy it because they're pushing boundaries and they're not just accepting like what the marketplace gives us. They're pushing boundaries and thinking, okay, what will I do differently? I'm working in FMCG. I don't want to be the same as my competitor. I want to do it differently.
What's been the feedback from not just internal, but clients, of course, as well? And has it led you to adapt or test and learn at all within the past year?
It's been very positive. The test and learn actually has been, I would divide into two things. One is we've really understood we have to simplify the story and the philosophy into, I think, your previous questions around how does it change working practices and how does it actually impact a different media plan are the two fundamental, they're the end points, but that needs to be the starting point of how we share this vision with clients. And I think that's really the test and learn for us in the first instance is of how we have communicated the philosophy to clients. So we've probably over-intellectualized it, as many agencies do.
Well, when you get an Oxford study to back you up, that does sound pretty intellectual.
And actually, all we care about and all they care about is, how does it make my media work harder? And actually, I think there's a really pragmatic, practical view of what this is going to do to make your media work harder that we have to really lead with. So that's really testing and learning how we communicate and how we make sure it's really, really clear why it's beneficial to clients. The second is obviously around the patterns themselves and the ideas that have come out as well. So across every client, we don't necessarily, again, it's not really about every client knowing this is a tagline. It's about them feeling a difference in the partnership and ultimately their media plans as well. So across a lot of clients, we've used it on pitches. So we've had a good successes from some new clients coming on board because they've really bought into this as a philosophy. So Tourism Ireland is a new global client, one very close to my heart.
I imagine, yeah.
Of course, bringing the wonders of the island of Ireland to the world and bringing people to come and visit. So for every listener, if you have not, please do go visit Ireland. It's a wonderful country. But for them, it was really, in a world where people had a very deep understanding, they thought, of what Ireland stood for and what it meant. Finding the difference of how you stood out as a destination was really important for them because it's a small island, but the competition is fierce in the travel industry as well. So it really allowed us to find clear differences and clear motivators for travellers to consider the island of Ireland. And we were able to communicate that through the pitch process. And then the thing that was really important for them is that was consistently delivered across all of the markets. So whether it's in Australia, in Singapore, Japan, in the US, Canada, for them knowing that we're communicating really consistently around that, but then tailoring it to the local markets was very important as well. And then the other two, I suppose, from a new business perspective, Amazon Music in India was a great new client win earlier this year, and that was really fundamentally very similar. Again, just finding the difference that really allows us to create in a huge market and highly competitive. They had to find a different way in, and that allowed us to do so as well.
You mentioned sort of the impetus for instituting full color media in the first place is a concern that in sort of algorithm driven planning practice that there is some sort of convergence to the mean potential. Yeah. And in the past year, since you launched, we've seen most of the agency holding groups, at least at the group level, really embrace AI-driven advertising practices, some more than others, obviously. So when full color media is all about convergence to the mean, while also holding groups are sort of wanting to institute AI into different practices, how do those practices merge? Or at least in your experience, how have they merged?
So just so I understand the question correctly, do you think there's a conflict between those two things, and it's how we blend the two together?
I think there's a potential conflict. I mean, you pointed out even at the beginning that AI back a couple of years ago was making you consider, okay, well, if algorithms tend to push people in a certain direction, how do we make sure that we're all not going in the same direction?
So now we're part of Omnicom Media. Our job is to maximize everything we have in the huge scale and huge size of the organization that we have, and the assets we have available, the technology, data. We now have, and we'll come on to talk about that in a bit, but like maximizing that is really important, but not relying on that solely to deliver is very, very important as well. I think the balance it comes down to the fundamental question also always of what is the right balance between humans and how they rely and how they use technology, but they don't outsource it to technology to do the job as well. So what we've done within and what we're doing now as we're kind of really knee deep in the integration within the world of Omnicom Media is look at our full workflow and elevate it with new data sources. So Axiom and Flywheel coming together, that's game changer. Like to have commerce data within the patterns that we look at, within the execution that we can have in mind as well, to really close the loop, to drive to a sale and think about retail media as part of the full mix, with Flywheel now as part of our gift that we have within our organization. That's fundamental. But the diagnostic and the pattern-based approach to really understand the difference still remains. And that requires humans to really make those decisions and understand how to orchestrate all of those things together as well. And I think, for us, and every different holding group has their own business model, and that is what they're all laying their hat at. I clearly fundamentally believe strongly in what we're doing with agency brands and the distinction within that, but being backed by the infrastructure and the technology platform like that we have within Omni as well. Because I think actually the scale of an organization isn't actually what matters. It's the ability to orchestrate all of the different component parts and all of the different assets we have within the business to deliver a client solution. And for a client, they don't want to talk to 20 different people. They want to talk to someone who really understands their business, understands their category, has a diagnostic in terms of what job do we need to do, what do we need to do differently to win, and help me by stitching all that together into one solution. And I think actually that's where our structure with brand-led, with the agency brands being the front door for clients, and then how we have internally set ourselves up at ease to be able to access those things, and then to be all connected by Omni is really what's going to make us stand out amongst other agencies as well. It's not a hard sales pitch. I genuinely really believe in it. I think it's such a game changer for clients. The challenge we have to be able to do that is to make sure that we create a frictionless environment for our people to be able to access those things to be able to speak to people from Flywheel, from Axiom, etc., and to be able to access it at ease to create those solutions for clients. So it's an operational challenge. I think we're making good headway on it. There's an education part in the first instance. Does everyone understand everything we have? Creo, our influencer business, ArtBot, which is dynamic creative, they all have a role within our overall workflow for a client. So we need to make sure, firstly, our agency brand and client leaders understand the capabilities, and secondly, they understand how to orchestrate the capabilities into one solution, not 10 solutions that you have to go and talk to a client about.
You want to maintain agency brands because you think that's valuable, but not feel siloed off from the rest of the business is kind of
100%.
Which I imagine can be a tricky balance. I mean, when you first launched Full Color Media, to me, and also seeing the response publicly to the announcement, it felt like very much like a planting of a flag moment of we're doing this planning different. This is what we're doing. It's backed by research. And so it felt like, we care about our agency brand being differentiated. And over the past year, there's been a lot of consolidation among agency brands, obviously depending on the holding group within there that they're owned by. Especially we've seen this more so perhaps at WPP than anywhere else. But does that concern you? And do you feel confident that is going to maintain its strong agency brand?
I'll start with that. I feel very confident. We're investing in it. We're scaling in it. Our new leadership believe in agency brands, and they believe in the distinction of the propositions to do, not just as a tagline, but to do something different for a client, so that when a new client comes to our organization and with an RFP, we can understand where does that client have the best home within our organization. So PhD, OMD, Media Hub, Initiative, Hearts and Science, we all offer something a little bit different. That culturally, as you go through this building in Bankside where we are, if you go to each floor, you'll discover a slightly different culture in the agency. You'll discover a different way of working and a different prioritization within it, which means that for different clients where they have different type of challenges, not necessarily just different categories, but different type of challenges, there's a different home. And I think for the clients that find themselves bland, they're really struggling to differentiate or cut through. They've got lost in their category, or they're trying to disrupt in a new category that they're trying to enter into as well. There's a really obvious fit for us of where can be the best partner for them. And likewise, there's other areas where a client will be much better homed within Initiative, for example, because their full funnel proposition of Fame and Flow is really around building really strong brands and the connected through to performance as well. So there's a difference in what each agency offers, that the organization is setting us up to make sure that we can then work with most clients because we've got a home that's very distinct for them based on the challenges that they have.
Gotcha. In terms of some of the brands that come in and are struggling maybe to stand out a little bit, I'm curious how media channels have and how they've changed, whether or not you think that's contributing to that issue for them. When I think of the channel mix, I mean, everything's sort of converged in the same way that maybe planning is actively maybe converging to a mean depending on what technology you're using, right? Everyone's pivoting to video all of a sudden. Media owners are consolidating. You've seen that especially in the TV market. Does that make standing against bland a harder proposition?
I don't think it does. I think it means that we look at patterns right through to the media channels and the way we distribute the messages for clients and their ads. So you actually go, every video impression is very different. The environment it's in, how long it is, the distraction or engagement of that consumer in that moment, whether it's mobile delivery or it's on a big screen, they're all different video moments. I think that clubbing it all into, I struggle also sometimes with when we club as media industry, when we club it all into AV. That was to simplify from a planning perspective, looking at reach across TV and online video. Totally get it. Makes sense. There's a maths behind it. But actually it's got a very, very different impact and impression on TV versus streaming, non-interrupted, non-skippable streaming versus mobile video when you're kind of got your kind of 1 minute, 1 second moment to grab someone's attention. So there's a real, I think the magic to really, really make it work very hard is thinking about those different video completely differently based on the different touch points. Number one, is there a different creative required? That's where something like an art bot, for example, that dynamic creative that allows you to then go, okay, we've got many, many different touch points within video, but I can't necessarily justify 50 different versions of the same ad because I've got 50 different touch points. So how do I have dynamic delivery enabled by technology that allows me to maximize the creative in that space for that moment? So there's a thinking that needs to go on. What's someone's motivation or moment or attention in that moment? And then how do you create the right creative? So that's where I think it fundamentally leans into standing against brands, because the tailoring for each different moment is exactly how you do stand against brands. The role of technology within that is to make sure you can do it efficiently. You don't have to go into a world where you've got your creative shoots and your production cost is actually higher than your media cost, which is every marketer's nightmare, I think.
Mentioned consolidation, TV market, agency market, just in terms of acknowledging the change that has happened with at IPG, now at Omnicom. We obviously talked about that we're in a new office that we're speaking in. What else would you say has sort of changed amid this transition period?
We've moved fast with Omnicom Media is not an OMG absorbing IPG. What the new leadership has done is fundamentally redesigned the organisation to set us up for something really future ready and future fit. We've thought about, in CES in January, we already were able to talk to the marketplace around Omni, the new evolved version of Omni, which takes the best of Interact, which was IPG's platform, and the best of Omni, and then overlays that with a massive enhanced AI and agentification of that workflow as well. Secondly, we've really put our stall out in our agency structure around agency brands. Flo, our CEO, has designed an organisation that has clear mapping of client success, which is all of the agency brands together, so that we, ensure that each agency brand has its proposition. We've got a clear route to client success for each of those, for all of our existing clients. And the big change actually has been the flow of information and the elimination of silos. I think overnight what we have is structures and communication that's really free flowing, and that is leaning into the fact that every single day the pace of our business is moving along. So that is, how do we upskill all of our people in all the new capabilities? And it's not even what exists today. It's in a month's time, there's new enhancements in each of those capabilities. So there's a constant flow of that information and that upskilling of our people. And then the second is to just make sure that we're kind of sharing and scaling within the communities around people who do the same things. So people who are managing clients or someone who's in an activation role, how are they part of a community of a scaled group of people that do the same job? And how are they learning the best practice to be able to do that function within the agency organisation as well? So the key things are changing, because the scale means that you have to have a really clear organisation around what we do and how we do it, and then just make sure that everyone has the investment in their career and in their training and in their education and the tools available to do the best job they can do as well. And then the second thing is just the other big change is just getting to know a whole new group of people. In London, obviously, where we are, we've all moved into really quickly, and I love that. We pulled the plaster off very quickly and brought everyone from the IPG Media Brands organisation within 60 days into Bankside, because we knew how important it was to physically be together and to kind of embrace this new organisation. And it has made a massive difference. And we're doing that all over the world to make sure the teams are together and so they can start working together.
On that human level, how have you managed the team amid what has been, there's been a lot of turnover that's been reported within the wider group. Obviously, you're talking about upskilling. There's, I imagine, quite a lot of people that have come to you even with concerns. So how have you sort of managed that from a leadership standpoint?
I think I'll answer it on a macro level first and then talk about some of the specifics. I think on a macro level, everyone knows that over the last couple of years, the marketplace is changing so fundamentally for marketers and for agency organizations. What we do and how we do it has changed fundamentally. And we need to, as leadership, we have to constantly look at and making sure that the organization is shaped and structured in a way and fueled by technology and data and everything that we do to make sure it's fit for purpose. That on top of an acquisition is hard, right? Because change in itself is really difficult. So, of course, we had a lot of our people kind of nervous about what that meant. What does it mean for their future, etc. as well. So for us, the approach has been as much transparent communication as possible. Firstly, helping with the context of what's going on within the marketplace. And secondly, the transparency around what we're designing for and the purpose behind that as well. So it's trying to balance a world where you're getting people excited about what the future could look like and have the confidence that we're designing an organization that's going to be leaning into that future. But the human side of it is obviously managing people through that change as well. And obviously the impact of some of those changes has been very difficult for people in the organization as well. And the nervousness around that as well. And you have to manage that with empathy. You have to look after people's well-being. And, just being transparent isn't enough. You have to put your arms around people and just really kind of try and take care of them through that process by being as open as possible through that as well. So that's I think, really what we continue to do. There's so many people in the trade press and even in the general press talking about the evolution of AI into the workplace and what it means for job security and things like that as well. And you just have to, continuously talk to our people and make sure they feel that's where upskilling, there's an element of training and education. But there's also an element of ensuring people they lean into upskilling themselves within that as well. So it's just encouraging people and showing them through evidence of what that means, how it can make their life better, how it makes their job better, etc. That we have to make
comfort and proving that embrace of technology is not necessarily going to replace your job, I think. Yeah. Do you feel things are settled now, or is it still sort of ongoing transition, potential more disruption, whether or not that's within this organization or, as you mentioned, sort of macro effects like AI adoption is a consistent thing? I guess, is the stomach still rumbling a little bit?
So we will continue to kind of make our organization future fit. I don't think there's an end point in that. I think if anything, the last couple of years have shown us that every CMO organization, every agency organization has to have one eye just clocked on seeing around corners about what is new, what's the pace of, whether it's, for our clients, what new competitors are disrupting their category, whether for us as agencies, what new technology exists for us to do a different job, a better job, what's the evolution of the marketplace as well. So I don't think there's ever an end point. I think embracing that is important. We're just over 90 days into being a new organisation. I think we've moved brilliantly fast to not only reassure our clients that the stability is there. Like, we are a stable, focused organisation. The parts of our business that are focused on the integration of the two businesses has been kept very separate, intentionally, from those of us who work directly with clients, to make sure we can focus on delivering for our clients. So I think that will continue to be our approach, is to make sure the stability for our people and for our clients is always there, whilst we have a team really thinking about the future strategies for the business.
You mentioned the macro level. Valuations of agency holding group companies have generally declined over the past year, and that's been across basically all of them. Investors seem to be pricing in some sort of a decline in business due to AI tools, due to people like Mark Zuckerberg saying, we think we can do all of your media planning and creative for you, at least if you're a smaller business. And agencies are also, I think, reckoning with funding models in a new era where clients are wanting outcomes. I'm curious if you have an argument, I guess, against the investment thesis that says these are declining businesses, actually.
I think that it's less an argument, it's more a strategy. So the convergence of data, retail, commerce, media, technology, and creative is our strategy. So, but simply and practically built into our workflow, into our platform, and into how we bring clients' offering. So often, a lot of our conversations with clients at the moment is, how do they run an effective IAT, so an integrated agency model? And whether or not all of those agencies sit within Omnicom, or they're, a combination of different agencies coming together, the clients are grappling with how to bring them all together into one integrated team, one integrated outcome. And the reason they're doing that is because those things all working as one unit is incredibly important for effective growth for them, and for an efficient growth for clients as well. So I think that devaluing is more around how siloed our type of businesses have become. And where you've got inefficiencies and the friction between all of these different silos, that's what's costing and devaluing clients' results, and then the net outcome for agency groups. So in my opinion, actually, our strategy is the right strategy, because it is, a very, very clear focus on the integration of data, technology, and commerce with media and creative all together, to make sure that that's the offering for clients. Whether or not we activate it or not, it's that mindset within our organization, and the mindset that's underpinned by the technology platform that allows all of those things to live together. What we need to do is bring our clients to that point. That's the big task for us, is to bring them to that point of eliminating those silos, because that's how they're going to be effective as well. And that's to the point of, when we're talking about video, when you're talking about thinking about all the different video touch points, the thinking through what's the creative message, what's the creative format for all those different touch points, and how do you build for that upstream within the creative process? That's fundamentally what we're talking about, is that will eliminate extra costs that clients just don't have anymore. They don't have those inefficiencies, have to be eliminated. And I think the strategy we have is the right one.
Gotcha. Last question, again, on sort of the human level. You mentioned you've been in London 26 years. I'm sure there's many other people that, like me, just a couple of years ago, moved to London, interested in this industry. What's your message sort of to the next generation of Adlanders that might be feeling some of the anxieties that you referenced earlier, whether or not they want to be in a position like you have in however many years later from now, or just want to get a foot in the door?
My first message is it's exciting. It's a really exciting time to get into our industry, because a few years ago, when you joined a media agency as a grad, the first job you did was reconcile billings, and you sit in Excel all day doing Excel media plans, reconciling financial, you end up being an accountant for the first couple of years until you move on to being able to work with media plans, until you move on to doing strategies. And I think, the integration of technology and automation in our workplace has meant the job has gone back to what we really are here to do, to be creative, to really push boundaries and work with brilliant minded people, and designing strategies for clients and working and spending time in person with clients and with your teammates, creating those ideas. So it's very exciting. I think what you need, my advice then is also what you have to do is you have to be self-serving within that. You have to be interested in using AI your own self. So like, how do you, in Omni, what we have within our AI console is the ability to build agents. So the first thing we're getting everyone to do is, what do you do? What repeatable tasks do you do on a day-to-day basis or in your personal life? Build an agent to do that. Like, lean into this as an instinct. If I do something over and over again, that can be agentified.
Yeah,
it can be an agent. Well, let's go with that, agentified. But it can be, and I think that's the instinct. You're trying to develop new instincts.
And it can be done effectively. Because I think a lot of people are nervous about, if I tell an agent to do something on my behalf and then that screws up, that's still my responsibility.
Exactly.
Even though I wasn't the one that made it.
And you don't outsource it completely. If it's a job you're doing for a client,
right? None
of us would ever get an agent to write an email and just press send.
I imagine some people would.
Well, if they did, they should.
They wouldn't be working here.
They wouldn't be. Or they might need to just adapt their adapt their process a little bit. But you use it to do, help me refine this, make it punchier, make it more to the point. You will check it before it goes. You'll press send, especially important things. Like if it's doing analysis on numbers, it's just, again, it's more like, how can I, something that used to take me 4 hours, how can I shortcut it, that it's effectively done? The analysis and the insights are done, but then I bring in my creative brain to look at it and decide, what's the final answer on this thing? What's the final client response? What's the final next step I have in that strategy? And I think that's what I'd encourage everyone to do, is just have an instinct for technology can enable you to do things faster and more effectively. But and then make sure that you feel equipped to do that as well. And then the second and last thing I'd say is just say yes to everything. I think join an industry, and if you're asked to work on a pitch or you're asked to work on a different client, obviously within the boundaries of what's feasible, you want to make sure you've got a life as well, but just say yes to everything, because new experiences will give you all that learning that you need and exposure to different people and different clients and different categories as well.
Well, I think that's a good place to leave it. Susan, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Great to speak to you.
Thank you for listening to the Media Leader podcast. Our executive producer is me, Jack Benjamin. Special thanks to our production partner, Trisonic. You can find all our episodes on the podcast platform of your choice or on our website at uk.themedialeader.com. But do please remember to subscribe to be notified of our next episode. You can also subscribe to our newsletter at The Media Leader to receive daily coverage of all the biggest news stories in media and advertising. From all of us at The Media Leader, I'm Jack Benjamin. See you next time.